All right. Well, good morning. We were here finally at long last.
High five.
Yes, we did it. It was like at least 6 months in the making, but we did get ourselves locked in a room with a recording device. I'm very excited about that.
Yeah.
So we're starting a podcast called What Matters with Tamise and Larry, and we're going to figure out what matters to lots of interesting people that we find interesting. Our goal would be to learn more about people, learn more about what they're up to, and give them an opportunity to promote something that they're working on, whether that be an entrepreneurial space or a nonprofit space or just being an awesome mom or whatever it might be. We just really want to hear people's story and help them get their word out if they're excited about something. So this being the first one, we're not going to have a guest. We're just going to sort of introduce ourselves. So I'm Larry, and this is Tamise.
Yep.
And she's going to tell a little story about why we were sitting in this room. So tell them how we met, why we're sitting here, what caused all this. Yeah.
So the beginning of the year, January 2024, we were a part of a leadership and training program. So that's essentially where we met. And that's where that question, what matters, became very important just in our individual lives. And I think that's what brought us together as buddies, because we had different systems set up to where we had to just learn about different people's stories and also get comfortable with sharing our story, but most of all, challenging one another and encouraging one another to show up as our best selves. And that's why we're here.
And your first impression of me in that small little group was?
So it was more or less your first impression of me.
Oh, okay.
Because it was more like as a buddy group, because we had different groups, we had to communicate to one another our first impression, like how we felt like one another was showing up. And so Larry called me out, and I wasn't very comfortable with it initially, but it was a good challenge. And he just basically said, yeah, Tamise, you showing up very guarded. And it was just because of the space that we were in, just coming into a new space, unfamiliar people, not really knowing what the full program was going to be about, because everything, we can't even tell people really what the program is about, because the question that's being asked is like, really, what matters to you? Right? And that's why we was just like, we want to come together and just talk about that more in order to encourage other people to tap into other opportunities for them to be able to grow through leadership and training and just showing up and being their best selves. But being called out at that moment really just made me want to not give off the impression that I didn't want to build relationship or I didn't want to shift and change.
Yeah. So your reaction to that comment, it surprises me that we're sitting here today.
Yeah.
You didn't handle it as well as you seem to be talking about it now.
Yeah.
But
no, I didn't.
we were challenged to be very upfront and honest with people, and
Yeah.
I've never had a problem with that.
Yeah.
And so then somehow or another, we get past that thing. I think you called me out pretty hard too afterwards, didn't you?
What did I say?
I don't remember, but I feel like there was a tit for tat there at some point, but maybe it was in the future. But like that, when I had that reaction from you and one other guy in the group that was just like, man, you came right at me. And I was like, oh, that's what they told me to do.
Yeah.
But
it was when we talked at the restaurant, and we was able to spend time with each other and just kind of unpack a little bit more about who we were and why we were the way that we showed up.
Yeah.
And it was around the time where you had to come to grips with reality about yourself and why you showed up the way that you did.
Yeah.
And how emotional it caused you to be, really.
Yeah.
Like, damn, like, why am I this way?
Right.
So, yeah.
And then we realized that we basically were the same person, just from different places.
Different places.
But that whole
obviously
brother, sister from
different
another
gender,
mother thing. Yeah, different gender, different
skin,
race,
right?
Grew up in different towns, but very similar people.
Same heartbeat.
Yeah. We're people of faith, love entrepreneurship and supporting people.
Yeah.
Both love learning about people's stories, which is why we know so much about each other so quickly.
And to my surprise, this brother loved hip hop.
Yeah, I do. I love me some hip hop. And we have another interesting connection in that your husband is equally a Charles Barkley freak. Like you don't run into these guys very often.
No, you don't. No, you don't.
We are the exact same person in that regard too.
Yeah.
Like we do nothing but think about that. And he was like what we were watching when we were kids. And he was our mentor. And it's both of us share that he's the one person, if we could pick one person to have a beer with or a cup of coffee with, it would be Charles
Barkley.
Barkley, no doubt about it.
Yeah.
He's read his book just like I have, which nobody has, by the way. Like it's
no, all the stats
us and his
everything.
mom has read that book. But he definitely read it. He's an awesome guy. And we hit it off immediately too, which I think was helpful as well. So, cool.
And then your wife, like we're both married, and we've been married about the same amount of time, 18 years, 19 years, both the same. And we both really passionate about our marriage and love our spouses. And that's a lot of our driving force, too, just in wanting to shift and change to be better for our families.
Even our spouses are sort of similar in that they are more than willing to help us chase our dreams and sort of stay in the background and be supportive when they need to be, or just get out of the way when they need to get out of the way, or go do their own thing too. And so like, I've noticed that about him. They're similar in that way, because it takes a special kind of nut job to let somebody go chase their dreams for 30 years,
That's real.
and be an entrepreneur. And it's it's ups and downs and all that stuff. So that's interesting. So when we got to know each other very well, we had a lot of awesome conversations. I remember just kind of hanging out, and like every other thing we'd say, we're like, no way, you too, no way, you too. And so at some point we like joked around about having a podcast.
Yeah.
We're like, we got to get on camera, basically. We got to get on, start talking about pup. And at first I was like, okay, that's just something that you say and it's funny. And I started thinking about it a lot, and I have sort of had this desire to do this, just to grill people. I think I have a unique ability to pry things out of people in a very non-confrontational way, and it leads to great storytelling and a way to learn about people. And so it kept festering, and then we kept, it was like a running joke for a minute, I thought. Like we were just, we got to get this podcast going. And then at some point, I don't remember exactly when it was, but a few months ago, I just felt like, no, we really do need to do this. Like, let's just make it happen. And then, of course, schedules are crazy. But there was a transition for me where I felt like, maybe we really should do this. I mean, I think it could be cool. And since then, I don't know about you, but I've been super excited about the artistic expression of it all.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially just with our commitment to our family, and even just the core of our faith. Yeah. Just showing up as real people. Like most of the time, just in the positions that we have as leaders, there's a pressure to show up, and show up in a way that's palatable for other people, and not really an opportunity to be our true authentic selves. So it's almost like, how do you show up as a human, right? And just desiring all the things, and then just having genuine conversation with somebody that's very similar. And I know that if it's just two of us, there's probably 2 million other people that need to hear from us too.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, at least, right? And I would say that too. My goal would be if we had our own studio, in a green room, it would say just be authentic. Yeah. Like, because that's I think there's a lot of posturing that goes on in a lot of walks of life, and I would think that if you're coming in to get interviewed on a podcast, even if only 5 people are listening to it, there's fronts and things that will be put on, and some masks that will be put on for people. And I want to do our best to just like tear those away. Yep. And let people be who they actually are in a safe way. Yeah. That way, it's just the easiest way to connect with people, obviously. So, and I think we also talked about like we just happen to have a lot of people in our sphere of influence that have really interesting, cool stuff going on, and that would give us like, months and months of content to just interview these people and learn more about them, and hopefully, help them get their entity or business or interest out, or their hobbies or whatever it is they're into, either to connect with more people that are doing that stuff, or grow their business, or grow their nonprofit. And who knows if it'll have the legs for that, but I think that that's something that was important to both of us, is getting people on here so that we're just not talking all the time, so that we're learning from different people from different walks of life that are up to something that's cool.
But also to share with people too, like the work that we did. Because we did a lot of work together. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And so we had a unique group. We was able to develop unique relationships with each person in that group. And we unpacked a lot, you know, in order for us to like live. Yeah. Don't you feel more free now than I definitely do. Than you did in the beginning of the new year? Yep. And I'm glad to see that too, Larry, because man, it was just a lot of weight that you carry when you don't get to release. Yeah. And we was able to release. And I think that's what's important about our time in front of all of you as well, is just how do you release? How do you let go of the stuff that is holding you back, and see that if we are able to unpack our life and not let any of our differences prevent us from being our true authentic selves, then so can you. Yeah. Yeah.
That's true. And back to that point about how we met, that workshop was crazy. I mean, there's just no other way to describe it. I mean, first off, the raw commitment of time was insane.
Oh, it was insane.
And everyone thinks you're crazy. You're going out till 1 a.m. to do leadership training, and you're going through all these emotions, and you're learning new languages and all this different stuff. And it's honestly amazing that anybody completes it. To be honest. But it did we came out of there like of that you know, there's these 2 weekends, and then the second weekend you come out, you feel like you've been in war with someone. I mean, this trauma bonding that almost takes place.
Yeah.
So not only do you become more free and you learn how to like deal with things different ways, you now have this enormous team of people. And I think that's probably the biggest takeaway I got was a new community of people that were like all on the same page. And that's just, it's really difficult to quantify that even, like what the value of that is long term, but it's massive because
super transformational.
Yeah.
And we get to create the world we want to live in.
Yes.
And this is like our way of doing that.
It is.
You know what I'm saying? So we get to impact the people around us. So like you said earlier, whether it's 5 people or 5 million, you know, like we're not chasing a number. We're just desiring to impact people's world and let them know to tear the walls down so we could just be who we call to be.
Yeah. It's interesting. I was talking to another alum from that class that's now become one of my best friends in the world, D, and I told him, you know, my life has been scattered with things that I really thought I wanted to do, but before I would let myself do them, I would run it through this litmus test of, is this the best use of my time? Is this the best use of my skill set? Will it make money? Will it make enough money for my skill set, right? And I've often turned my back on something that I really wanted to do, like I should have been a rapper, right? Like that's what I wanted to do, I almost would have rather failed and bombed at it than done what I did, and I've had a lot of fun and I've done whatever I've wanted to do, but I always pass it through a utilitarian comb. Like it has to be utilitarian or I'm not doing it. This is the first thing I've ever committed to doing where I don't really give a crap if it makes $1. I don't care if anybody even watches it. I just feel like I have to do it. Yeah. And that's why I know it's going to work.
Hey, but it's almost like it was a moment where we was able to have a graveyard experience. You know what I'm saying? And then you just reflect.
Which, by the way, I realize sounds super weird if you've not been to it, but there is a point to it.
It's just like, I mean, just having the opportunity to walk through a cemetery and recognize that there's people there that could have done what we're doing right now and probably didn't. Yeah. And so I don't want to leave here
for sure
on a full tank.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Right. I want to leave here poured out and people are able to follow up on what I've done while I was here. Yeah. And if anything, I'm just like, man, be your true self. Yeah. Yeah.
It is a big deal. And it's such a simple thing to say, such an impossibly hard thing to do on your own.
But it's totally a mindset shift.
It could be done. But it takes work. It takes help for sure.
And we here to do that. That's what we stirring up.
Yeah, man. Yeah. I agree. Yeah. I think that there'll be a lot of, you know, if this thing goes as long as I see it going, I think that a lot of people will have a lot better understanding of some of these workshops and things that they can do, whether it be Zarvos or something else. And we'll probably have an episode about that at some point. But so let's, the normal format would be to, what's up, D? We're just talking about your brother.
Right.
And I love this. So informal. Just walk right into our podcast, bro.
And it's our show. We can do that.
And who cares?
Because what matters?
Yeah, what matters.
Right.
So the What Matters podcast is typically going to interview people that we, like I said, find interesting or have something to say. Being this is our first inaugural episode, we thought we'd just talk about something that we both really connected and bonded over. That's really simple and it's like bubblegum, and that is the hip hop. So
if you want to kick it off with a freestyle, I got a beat.
Oh, yeah, I'll freestyle. Let's go.
All right.
Where's the beat? You gonna beatbox? Oh, you're just doing it. Oh, okay. Can we do better than this, D? Come on. Yo, welcome to the T and Larry show. We about to let your people know, let it go. Be free and be real. Freestyles from the dome. Never going home all night on the mic. Can't pass every time. Let's go. And the Larry and Tamise show. All right.
Feel the vibration from the shake of the camera.
Yeah, I'm sure the camera was all over the place. And, I thought, for some reason, I one time asked you, can you rap? And you're like, please.
Nah.
And I think you were actually saying, please, like, I can't. I was like thinking you were saying, yeah, duh, I can't.
Oh, no, so I cannot.
I told him, I was like, we should end every show with a freestyle.
Yeah, and Larry got you on that.
Yeah, so maybe I do. Let's see. We'll figure it out.
I'll sing a background if I feel it.
Yeah, so the other thing you should know about Tamise is, so I can sing. Tamise can sing, right? Like she'll blow your windows out. Like no mic needed, no equipment. She's crazy singer, crazy. Anyway,
I'm not Beyonce though.
I don't know about that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'd take your voice over hers, man.
Oh,
you got a big voice. She can probably dance better though.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
For sure.
So, okay, let's talk. We're just sort of practicing how this works. So let's get this going. Let's talk about hip hop.
Yeah.
So tell me the first time you heard hip hop. Like, what was it? What was it about it? Did you love it instantly? Was it a slow burn? Like, give me a little bit about like how hip hop came into your life.
Yeah. Okay. So my dad was a DJ.
Okay.
He hung out with a group of DJs growing up. My parents were teenage parents.
Okay.
So he rode with a bunch of guys that had the boom boxes.
That's so fun.
Grew up in the 80s.
Yeah.
So I'm an 80s baby for sure. And they carried a boom box with them. And just always being around music, dancing, having a good time. But the first rap song that I remember is Slick Rick. And I forget the name of it, but it's like once upon a time, not long ago, where people wore pajamas and lived life slow, something like that. Yeah, that was the song.
And so you hear
Rick.
that song. Is it one of those skirt moments in your life, or was it just like, oh, that's kind of cool?
Nah, it was just dope. Like my cousins knew the words. My mom was real particular about the music that I listened to as I was coming up. So it was a great divide between my father and my mom.
So you grew up in the church, right?
My mom was, bona fide.
Were you a church where like Jesus can dance but we can't, sort of thing? Like dancing was forbidden, or did y'all dance?
It was like it's complicated.
Okay.
Because we had an interesting church life, but for the most part, my mom just didn't want me to be wild. She didn't want me to be like one of those fly girls off of Living Color and just dancing all fast and whatnot.
Yeah.
So she just wanted to protect me. So that was just her thing. But my dad was just like, let's have a good time. So they was just on different wavelengths.
Got it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
What about you? Like,
So-
how did hip hop enter your life?
So you got to understand that I am middle class white Indiana, going to Christian schools and going to a very conservative Baptist church where we were not dancing. The instruments that we had were organ and piano, and maybe if there was an evangelist there, he'd play a guitar. But very conservative. And my dad was very much outdoorsy, hunting, fishing, contractor. So there was a lot of country music, which I love, and a lot of just regular music. And so I came into the hip hop game a little late. So when I was growing up at 38th and Richart, which is kind of I was a minority there. Let's just put it that way. And I would hear the cars go by with like the
Beats.
big beats, and I'm like, that sounds cool. Of course, my parents would like roll their eyes so hard, right? Like this is just so ridiculous. But I was intrigued by the sounds, and then I want to say like. The first time I probably heard a hip hop song was honestly MC Hammer, because I didn't even know about rap stations at that point, right? Like I didn't even know that the radio existed other than ZPL or some easy listening stuff that my parents were playing, because they were kind of in control of that world for me for a long time. So I got and MC Hammer intrigued me, but I was like, man, but I really did appreciate the just complete difference that it was from every other music that I'd heard.
Yeah.
But then I heard, and I don't even remember what song it was, but it was some older hip hop where they were doing a lot of scratching with records, and I thought, that is crazy, because for me, one of the coolest things about hip hop is that this whole culture, this whole musical genre, basically started because of using things for things they're not meant to do. Like they took a device that's meant to play music and they made an instrument out of it.
Yeah.
They took music that was on other people's albums and cut pieces out of it to create new songs with these break beats.
Yeah.
And that was really the start of it, and that fascinated me.
Yeah.
Like I tried to learn how to scratch records. I ruined a bunch of my dad's records.
Yeah,
like,
I'm sure he was mad about that.
Anytime I hear a record scratch, it just like I hear it and I want to hear what. And then I got into like finding that there were these people that were like literally turntablists, like they could play them like an instrument, and there was competitions in it. And so that was all kind of going on. I was fascinated with that aspect of it. I liked the idea of rapping is harder than people think, and not everybody can do it, right? So when hip hop started taking off, you had everyone from youth pastors to the president's wife trying to make little raps for things, and you realize very quickly like you can either do this or you can't. Like it's not something that you can just like. I'm a second grade teacher and I can put some rhymes together over a beat. You had to have like a certain attitude. You had to have a certain like quality. Like I don't want to say it factor, but there was something like that.
No, it's definitely a culture.
For sure.
For sure.
And it was a culture that I quickly realized didn't have to be just black people too, right? And I know a lot of people ask me, well, did you like, Vanilla Ice? Did you like Beastie Boys? Did you like these white rappers? And the truth is, like, I was a little bit interested in Vanilla Ice, but not really. And I never did like the Beastie Boys until the very end. They're probably their last album or something I thought was cool. But so it wasn't about the race thing for me. It was really just about the music. But like in my family and the people that I was around, like white people didn't listen to that music. And so there was that forbidden factor. But then Snoop and Dre came out and they went mainstream. And so now you saw on MTV Dre Day and Today Was a Good Day by Ice Cube. And I saw hydraulics on a car and I like lost my mind, right? So the culture was very appealing to me. So then you started hearing hip hop on the regular stations. And that kind of was the game changer for me because then I was being introduced to Paperboy and Dre and Snoop and West Side Connection and all these guys. And it really did blow my mind. Like I was fascinated with how quickly these guys are thinking. I was fascinated with the stories they could tell because at that time the 80s was a weird time for music. It was very, very repetitive. It was very hair band, not much substance to the music. And hip hop songs by and large, they were telling really important stories, talking about really important topics. So there was just so many things about it that fascinated me. And then I remember I was on a bus to a basketball game or something, and these kids were, these black kids in my school were rapping "What's My Name" by Snoop, and I just without thinking stood up and was rapping along with them, and I thought that this is going to cause a fight, like I can't be doing this, and they were like yeah, and they thought it was cool, and I was like, oh, I'm in, right, and so that was a big deal for me.
Because that's an anomaly.
It is. I mean. I didn't know if I could touch it, right? Yeah. And I knew for dang sure that I wasn't supposed to be touching it at home because, like, if I was listening to hip hop, somebody would come in and tell me to turn it off. Like, I was not supposed to watch In Living Color. Like, this stuff was not acceptable. Yeah. And then you had the whole language component too, right? Which gave a lot of people pause because there was so much profanity in most of the of rap. Yeah. And but like I quickly was like, I don't care about that. It does make it work better and it makes sense, right? And so I just have been fascinated with it ever since. And then once I got my wheels and I could drive, it was a wrap because then I could buy anything I wanted. I could go to the record store and pick out anything I wanted, and I will never forget because I was all over the board on hip hop. I don't know, like some people they stay in certain lanes, like they like West Coast or East Coast or slow jams or whatever. Yeah. And I would just consume every hip hop that I could get my hands on. And one of the things I stumbled across was ICP. Have you ever heard these guys? Insane Clown Posse? No. So it's largely like a joke, like an act. Okay. But they dress up like evil clowns and they rap about just crazy stuff. Yeah. And I will never forget one time my mom, for some reason, just steals my truck. I mean, she basically just jumped in my truck and took it to the store, without even asking, which is fine, I guess. But she came back, she was mortified. Because I had my CD in there, ready to play it. It was like, if you could pick the absolute worst, most raunchy, song that you would never want your mother to ever hear or know that you had heard, that's what she got to hear. And she didn't know how to turn it off or nothing because I had all this crazy system with the subs and all that. And so she was mortified out for I was like, you're not understanding. There's an art, there's a craft here. Yes, it's ridiculously abrasive and it's ridiculously raunchy or whatever and full of swear words. But there's something else there too that you're focusing on the wrong things. Yeah. You're not seeing how these guys are putting these syllables together and how they're working these beats and and stuff like that. So, and then the next stage for me was I ran into this dude named Brad Weimer when I was selling Cutco knives, and he was like a b-boy straight up from Detroit, and he had a radio show where he spun records late at night, and we'd get up there, dude, and we'd drink 40s and spin records till 3 a.m, and he exposed me to this whole underground scene of hip hop that I never even knew existed. He introduced me to Common and Mos Def and Black Alicious and the Far Side and all these guys. And it just, again, I had a whole nother just mind-blowing session of all this other stuff that I didn't know existed. So, and the last thing I'll say about it, because I know I'm just talking forever here, but obviously hip hop's important to me. And it means a lot to me. But one of the things that I will never forget is being about 17 and blaring hip hop in my bedroom on my huge speakers that I had bought and my parents coming in there being like, "What? Will you just get over this crap already? This is just a bunch of nonsense." And I said, "You guys are insane." I go, "This is going to take over the world." I'm like, there will not be an element of our culture by the time I'm an adult that hip hop has not completely infiltrated. And I said every genre of music, every commercial, every movie, everything you see and touch or do will be influenced by hip hop.
Yeah.
And they thought you were on drugs, you know,
And it has happened.
and then Nelly had a song with Tim McGraw, and I will never forget telling my parents, "See, I told you so." And now, if you watch TV, every commercial has hip hop beats on it. Every genre of music, even classical music, is integrating parts of hip hop. And another weird thing that happened too was like, I was a basketball nut as well, and basketball and hip hop just sort of like morphed together.
Oh yeah,
like that culture,
like NBA, 2K,
yes,
all that stuff.
And like I remember this episode of The Office where Michael Scott says, you know, rock and roll or football is rock and roll and basketball is jazz. Well, hip hop, a lot of its roots are in jazz, obviously, but it's not jazz. It is hip hop. Hip hop and basketball are integral. Like they are one thing now almost.
Yeah.
And so that was a big part of it. And I've never seen that happen with a genre of music in like a sport or like an activity like that. So it definitely changed my life. It made me more able to connect with my community, because in my neighborhood there weren't many people listening to Garth Brooks.
Okay.
But that's the stuff that I was getting from my parents.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
which I love Garth Brooks. I'm like, he's like my first concert, one of my favorite, you know, of all time. But it was sure a difference between seeing him at the RCA Dome and seeing Eminem at Tiger Stadium in Detroit. You know what I mean?
Did you see? You saw Eminem?
I saw his last show in Detroit before he went on that long hiatus, and it was like one of the best experiences of my life.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it was ridiculously awesome.
Yeah.
So what about you? So like what
Well,
so you get introduced to it. Tell me
Well,
about the impact.
I grew up saturated with music, all different genres of music as it pertains to the black culture. So R&B, gospel, hip hop, those were the main three, you know, genres of music that I grew up listening to. Like I said, my father was just a party. I mean, both my parents partied, but when my mom, you know, when I was born, my mom took more into like, I don't want her to be out there like that. And my dad was just like, I always wanted to be with my dad because he was just a laid back, cool guy and just always had, it was always a party.
Yeah.
So, man, I never just knew a time where like I wasn't connected to hip hop in any type of way. Because Common is definitely from Chicago, you know, Twista, listening to him. So there was a rap station when I was growing up. I think it was like, it was kind of staticky, so it was like on the AM network, you know what I'm saying? And we was able to just like listen to that with my stepbrother. And we listening to, for me, it was Twista because I grew up in Chicago, so Twista and Do or Die.
Okay.
So, and then of course it was a lot of East Coast music. So Bad Boys, Puff Daddy, Biggie, Jay-Z, Nas. So Jay-Z I had a close affection to that, his style of music. And then of course when the East Coast, West Coast beef happened, you know, around high school and
I'm all West Coast on that beef, by the way.
Yeah, see, and I was just all for the music. I mean, the drama was what it was, you know what I'm saying? But yeah, totally devastated when Tupac was murdered. Totally devastated when Biggie was murdered. I mean, that hugely impacted my life just as far as like who I was in high school, you know, and just how I identify myself, especially as a person that was in church but did my thing in church and did my thing outside of church. Yeah. That's the reason why I was saying it was complicated, because that was the lifestyle that was introduced to me. Like church was separate. It was almost like a compartmentalization type of thing. Yeah. So like you do your church thing on Sunday and then every day out of the week, you know what I'm saying, you just get to live. Yeah. And that was just kind of how it was back then. But I don't know.
It's funny you mentioned,
as far as Vanilla Ice, you know, and anybody else, I didn't listen to white rappers. Okay. So that wasn't something that I was almost, it was, I grew up where it was like offensive.
Well, largely they were trash.
Yeah. And it felt offensive too. Because it was just like, because it was a lot of.
Because it did feel like your music. So
it was cultural misappropriation. It was just like, you trying to use this loose vernacular when you know that's not really your upbringing, but like you forcing yourself. So it's just like, it was a divide really for me growing up. More of like, hip hop is for everybody. Nah, hip hop was for us, because it was just like it kept. It was where we was able to express ourselves the most, And then mainstream television or radios never did play it.
Right.
So everything was underground.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So it was like you got to sneak, basically got to make way to listen to it so that you could support it. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? Until finally.
It's finally got legs and white people start doing it.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And then now you got a bunch of black people that's just like, what's up?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
interesting.
it didn't feel good to us because
Yeah.
it was just like everything that we created was being taken from us. That's what
Right.
it felt like.
Again.
Yeah, right. So that's where that was for me. But overall, music
So when did
unite.
you-
I know that music unites people.
Right.
So-
when did you get okay with white rappers? Or are you still not okay with white rappers?
It ain't the fact of me being okay with it because I recognize that there's different rappers now. I mean, right now, so let's say Eminem.
Yeah.
Listening to the story, watching 8 Mile, listening to the story and different things like that, I think I was able to understand. Like I was able to understand that there were actually white people that didn't grow up, wealthy and identify with the culture of people that they were around the most.
Right.
And because of that identification, then that's where you have like, let the man rap. I mean, he was cold. Eminem was cold.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So like his music that he did with Jay-Z, his music that he did with Dre, like all of that, he
Anything
was
he's ever done,
cold.
yeah.
Man,
And-
he is cold.
And I know that's the thing. People never believe this coming from a white guy, but like his skin color has nothing to do with why I like him. That dude is a beast, and he does it differently than anybody else.
Well, he was what allowed me to recognize that skin color didn't matter when it came to just a love for music. So
Yeah.
he helped me respect people and their love for music.
That's interesting.
And he never, it wasn't like he was trying to take over and come after somebody. He was just trying to find his own way.
Yes.
And that's how I looked at it.
Yep.
So, and then of course I was going to predominantly white schools.
Gotcha.
So at the same time, here I am trying to learn how to be my full self and mix in without assimilating. And that's a little bit of a struggle as a young person trying to figure it all out.
Yeah,
But,
I definitely felt that in reverse growing up. I felt like such a misfit for wanting to like learn more about hip hop and listen to hip hop nonstop. And for like, even though I didn't like them very much, like the Beastie Boys like kept me alive because I didn't think they did that great of music, but they were in the game and people recognized them and they were doing it and nobody seemed to have a huge problem with it. And then it literally was that acceptance. That, like,
really, I didn't pay no attention to them. I never listened to their music.
I didn't much either. They got play on MTV, because partially
because
they're white.
MTV went right.
Yeah.
That's what it was. MTV they only gave us an hour when we had MTV Raps. It was only like an hour. It's only an hour and a
even
half.
then, they were blacking stuff out on the shirts and like the hats and stuff like that, and they were obviously editing the lyrics down like crazy. It's funny that you mentioned having to struggle to find it on the radio. Like I remember 96.3 being the only hip hop station in Indy, and it was like, I want to say I was like in 8th or 9th grade before that even hit that I was aware of. Of course, then I'm like doing the thing where you're taping music off the radio trying to get, because I couldn't get my hands on that stuff.
Yeah.
It was like, for a while, it was like porn. Like it was like I had to hide and be underground with it. Like
No, straight up, because of the
the
language
culture
and
and the
everything.
language,
Yeah. For us, I'm talking about like a only rap station. So
Yeah.
I grew in Chicago. We had 3 radio stations.
Okay.
That played hip hop and one that played hip hop and R&B, another one that played strictly R&B, and maybe a little bit of hip hop, and then one that just played nothing but dusties, like old school music.
Gotcha. You're right, because 96.3 did a lot of R&B as well.
Yeah,
You're right,
so you gotta find the one that's solely playing
and we
rap.
still don't have that.
Yeah, and so we had one that solely played
crazy.
rap. Yeah, and that was on the AM station.
That's nuts.
And that was Do or Die. That was Twista. That was Common. That was a lot of the like people from Chicago.
Did you feel it like I felt it when all of a sudden Will Smith's rapping on Fresh Prince of Bel-Air as the theme song? Like, to me, that was like an earth-shattering moment. I was just like, no way.
That was the anthem.
That's what I'm saying.
That was like, that was the anthem for us. Like he
it
was
went
able
from,
to.
They're burning CDs and running over them with bulldozers of, NWA. And then next thing you know, Will Smith's on a show rapping his theme song.
Yep. You know the theme song?
Of course I know the theme
What
song.
is now? I can rap that.
Okay, let's go.
Now this is a story all about how my life got flipped, turned upside down, and I like to take a minute, just sit right there. I tell you how I became the prince of the town called Bel Air.
I can do the whole thing, girl. Come on. That was a big deal, and I remember like it visibly like shaking my parents. Like they're like, "What is this?"
Wow.
And I'm like, yes, you know, I'm like,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
validated. Like this, like you can't say no now. I gotta go listen.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and like again, I wasn't a huge fan of Will Smith. I think he had some pretty good records, but like he wasn't like an awesome rapper. It was just the fact that this guy was not an actor. This dude was a rapper, and now he has his own show and
yeah.
he's doing his own song.
Killing the game.
It was ridiculous.
He killed it.
And then of course, yeah, he blew up, and
Yeah.
there's a lot of people like that too that it came out of hip hop and blew up into something else.
Yeah.
So you mentioned East Coast, West Coast. What about like were you into like the Outkast, like the
Oh,
South,
yeah.
you know, Master P?
Yeah,
all
you
those
do,
guys.
yeah, Outkast, Master P, Dr.
T.I.,
Troy.
yeah.
Yep, T.I. Yeah.
Yeah, there's some crazy stuff. I feel like
That was in my college years.
Yeah.
So I got more into Southern hip hop when I got into college because my husband is from the South.
okay.
So that was a lot of the music
So
that he
does he
listened
like
to.
all the chopped and screwed stuff?
Now that's Houston.
I was gonna say I'm
That's
not in love
more-
with that, but I can handle
Yeah, I was able to get into that more like around college.
Yeah.
The early 2000s.
Gotcha. So yeah, I probably discovered Outkast in like I want to say mid '90s, and they just blew my mind. Just blew my mind. Andre 3000 is insane.
Yeah, because I think they came out around like the early
It was earlier than
90s.
I think I caught them, but it wasn't much earlier. I think that if they might have started in '90 or something, but it wasn't. So who is the most influential hip hop artist of your life, and who's your favorite? Or is it the same person?
The most influential hip hop. Whew. Ooh. Oh my gosh, the most. You said the most.
Yeah, the guy that meant the most to you, or woman.
Oh man, I'd have to say Biggie means the most to me.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
His story.
Yeah.
I knew that his mom tried to raise him a certain way,
Yep.
and he opted to go the opposite way.
Yeah.
But he was super cold, just in his lyrics. Like, I definitely listen to throwback Biggie music all day.
Oh, me too.
Yeah.
Party and Bullshit is one of the best songs
Yeah,
ever
yeah.
made.
What's my favorite? Dang, I got it.
What about that
What's
one?
Beef?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
That's my favorite.
Okay.
If I'm mad, I'm probably gonna put that on.
That's funny. See, and I was all on the Tupac side of all that, man. Like, I was just like, Death Row was where it was at for me.
And now, see, when it was
I
a
liked
Biggie and
but I was
Tupac,
like, screw Biggie, man.
now I was like, I appreciated both of them, but if it was anybody, it was just because Biggie was cool. Like, he was that guy. Yeah, I liked him more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he influenced you, or he's your favorite, or both?
I would say if I was influenced by a rapper specifically, it would probably be Jay-Z.
Yeah.
Jay-Z is the one. I love his use of words. So I'd say I became a lover of words because of how I heard Jay-Z use them.
Yeah.
He was crafty with his lyrics.
Yeah.
So he probably influenced me the most.
Jay-Z was crazy.
Yeah.
Like, especially his earlier stuff.
Yeah.
I also was very influenced by Jay-Z because when his like album when like that whatever album Big Pimpin' was on, there was one right after that was so hard, and it was right when I was like coming into my sales career with Cutco. And the thing that I noticed about Jay-Z, a lot of rappers talk about this, but he was very specific and spoke very clearly about the come up from the drug game to being an entertainer. And it was so tactical and practical the way he was talking about like his business strategy basically, and how he entered and put that into music. And like I was nonstop. It was like I was doing homework listening to him about the grind.
Hey, that's straight up. Like he's the one that make you want to have wealth.
Yeah.
He the one that make you like one of his songs right now that I really like is like I'm good on any Martin Luther King Boulevard. I'm good. Yeah. So it's like
Well, so and then there was this song. Most people who know me, and we'll talk about this at some point, I'm sure, I've had quite a run-in with the law over the years, mostly just because I'm driving too fast and doing stupid things, but I'm not like a hardened criminal, but I've definitely been in my share of trouble. And there's this, 99 Problems. There's this great line where he's like, son, do you know why I pulled you over for? He's like, because I'm young and I'm black and my hat's real low. And I'm like, no, you were doing 55 and a 54. And it's like, there are people that can relate to that, and there are people that cannot. And I absolutely can. I know probably like more of black people can relate to it more than I can, but I have been there, dude. Like I have been that guy.
Did you see his documentary, The Black Album?
I don't know if I have.
Man, so I mean, I was
the Black Album was, by the way, ridiculous too.
Yeah, I was a hella like Jay-Z fan, and still like love him. You know what I'm saying? Because he cold. He's just cold at what he does. But
yeah, he's crazy. He also had this song. Have you ever heard that song? It Was All Good just a week ago. Find that song.
Okay.
It's got him and somebody else that blew up. I can't remember his name. It's real old, but man,
I need to check
it's
it
so
out.
hard. I believe,
Okay.
I believe it's on the same. It's not on the Black Album. I think it's on the same one with Big Pimpin' though.
Yeah.
Which I forget what that. It might be called that. I don't know.
Yeah.
Now, but what about this? Like, did you think it was crazy when? So I always think it's funny how you've got these artists like Justin Timberlake's probably the perfect example. In sync, doing pop, whatever, went on his own. And then the first thing he does, he goes to Timbo to do his beats. He did Timberland do his beats, and he blows up.
Oh, Justin is cold.
And so many people have gone that route. Like they're kind of in a pop, but then they go and have like a Dr. Dre or Timberland or like the Neptunes and Pharrell would do all their tracks, and it was like that changed the whole game too. That's like a whole nother genre that people don't even really think about or talk about because it's so ingrained now to have a person that can sing go find a rap. A producer that can do beats and put those on over that stuff. Yeah, that was a huge change too. People didn't even notice it.
Timberland is cold
Crazy.
too. So like, all of these different.
Are you Timberland? Do you like Timberland better or Dr. Dre in terms of producer? Because they're different, man.
Yeah, I was about to say you can't put them on the same level. So,
but they do the exact same thing, just completely differently.
But Dre got a very long history at it. You know what I'm saying? So yeah. We got to pick this up, though. Yeah. We got to pick it up. Yeah. Yeah. This is good.
Yeah. So, are we out of time?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, listen, it was awesome to do this and finally get it on wax, so to speak, to use that hip hop term. Yeah. And I can't wait to do it again. And hopefully, this Kaylee lady that's sitting over here observing will be our first guest.
Yeah.
Tell us all about what she's doing over there at Circle City Realty.
Yep. And what matters.
What matters. We did it. All right. Bye, everybody.